All right, so this is episode 5, our third take on it. We had technical difficulties on 2 different episodes. We finally fixed John's computer, which turns out that was the problem. We thought it was the internet issue because I was on some sketchy internet, but then it turns out your computer was a disaster. So we fixed it.
Good.
So there was some kind of demon in there.
There was. I appreciate you leading me through the boggy marsh and the epic hill that we had to climb, and we fought 3 ogres and a giant spider at one point.
Here's what most people don't know about people that they think are good with technology. It's not that they're good with it, and I think I fall into that that category of people who are good with technology. It's that there's 2 things. One, if it doesn't work, that drives us nuts, and so we 2, if resetting everything usually helps. So if you know the sequence of things, just turn it all off, reset it, factory reset, works. But most importantly, you just gotta just poke around with stuff until it doesn't work.
I've found that throwing the equipment out the window and buying new ones seems to work pretty good.
That's a hard reset. That works. So, most of the time we don't know what we're doing when we're trying to fix the thing, the stereo or, your printer. We're just poking around, not afraid to poke around, and click on stuff and try some things.
What's
it's
the
already
computer?
Broken. What's the worst going to happen?
What's the computer redneck version of that? Because to me, like a redneck is like more hard, like something mechanical. Like you're going to just poke around. You got part 4 back in the garage under the toolbox, and
so like your car isn't working, and you start troubleshooting, start taking things off it. Next thing you know, you've taken the entire engine apart.
Exactly.
That's the redneck equivalent. The wrong thing to do is just start taping crap on there, and trying to patch it up, because that just makes it worse. But don't be afraid to just tear into it, whatever it is, and fix it. So that'll do it. So we got a cool episode. We're going to do the cover song draft. It's been a little while since we did a draft. I had some cover songs that were just in my playlist, kept popping up. I did like the full Western Loop road trip over about 2 weeks since the last time we were on. Went to the few basketball games. The conference tournament was in Las Vegas, so I went all the way down I-5 from Portland, made some stops, ended up in San Diego for a few days, then made my way over to Las Vegas, then came all the way back up I-15 up through Utah and Idaho. Did the full loop. It was pretty cool.
What was the coolest thing you saw? Did you see the world's biggest rubber band ball or peanut or something?
I don't tend to do any of that kind of stuff. Right. But if you've ever, one little neat thing is if you're on I-15, which goes from, basically goes from Mexico all the way up to Canada, but it goes up through Southern California, then kind of cuts a little bit east and heads into Nevada. It's how you get to Las Vegas straight from like Los Angeles, which without traffic is not very far, 3-hour drive or something like that. But then it keeps going north, and it cuts through just this tiny little corner of Arizona. You're only in Arizona for like a minute, and then you get up in Utah, and it just heads all the way up through Utah. But there's this river, it's called the Virgin River, and it cuts through this canyon so steeply that as you're approaching it, if the light is good, and you're that little part of Arizona where you're just cutting through the corner, it looks like the freeway can't go anywhere. It looks like you're going to run into this massive cliff, and you're like, where does this go? I don't see a road going up the mountain.
Dang.
And then there's just this out of nowhere, seemingly a little slot appears in the cliffs, and the freeway goes through there along the Virgin River. And the whole time I'm going, man, whoever built this is amazing that they did this. I don't know if it's a good thing, for nature and all that stuff, but it's an impressive feat of engineering. I-15 going through the Virgin Canyon. So that always impresses me.
There needs to be one of those like Hollywood signs that goes across the road, like Wile E. Coyote would do to try to trap the roadrunner, where it's like it looks like the road, but then you crash through it.
It's like that, but it's a full on freeway. So yeah. So we're going to do cover song draft. But at the top, there's this thing I wanted to talk about, because it's kind of, whenever I see someone being black and white or mad or hating on something, I'm always curious. What's the nuance? What's the underlying thing? And I kept seeing in my feeds, more than normal, I see it every once in a while, I'm quitting Spotify because they don't pay the artists enough. Right? or I'll see that, or I'm quitting streaming services. I'm going back to CDs because they don't pay the artists enough. And I see that every once in a while. But over the last few weeks, I've seen it a ton. And most people call out Spotify, and it makes sense. It's the biggest, right? That's why most people that don't live in California are mad about Californians moving to their state, because California is the biggest state by population by far. So it makes sense that most people moving to your state from another state are coming from California.
Yeah, right.
So there's this bias towards it. So there's a bias towards Spotify specifically. And so I wanted to know, like, okay, what's the nuance here? What's the truth with streaming? And a lot of people don't know a little bit of my background is I was music industry adjacent within a couple roles. I worked with musicians for a boutique guitar and electronics manufacturer. I was the program manager for the whole electronics shop. I had musicians coming in there and all types, famous people all the way to like the session guys that are like elite musicians that you've never heard of, like a Mike Landau, who you've almost certainly heard Mike Landau play guitar, but you have no idea who he is. So those types of people. And so I've been there, and I understand, some of the economics. And so I wanted to dig into it and see if I could make some sense of the nuance of how people are getting paid in the streaming space, because it's definitely changed, right?
Yeah.
Did you have tapes?
Yes.
And then moved to CDs? Were you around, or were you old enough to at least be exposed to 8-tracks being played?
Yeah. I was very young, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my dad's car when I was little had an 8-track player, and we had a Beach Boys album that you'd play. So if you don't remember, it's like bigger than a cassette, not as big as like a VHS.
It's like an
tape.
Atari cartridge.
Yeah, and if I recall, you couldn't really like rewind. You had to play it. You could fast forward, and if you wanted to listen to the other side, you had to play it like a
pull
different
it out
way.
And flip it, right? You pulled it out.
No, it would just
upside down.
You didn't flip it like a tape.
Okay.
It just would go backwards and play the other side of the tape without flipping it. So it was a little bit different than. Let me see if I can fix this. Okay, that's cool. I had a little echo. It was a little bit different, but the music industry had this luxury especially through Gen X's lifetime, where can you think of an album that you bought at least 3 times? Like, you bought the tape, then later you bought the CD, and then later you bought it on digital, like you bought it in iTunes. Was there any album?
I mean, I want to say Metallica Black, but I don't know if I got that on tape.
Right.
But something like that. Yeah.
I could tell you 2 off the top of my head. I know for sure I did that, and there's definitely more. It would be Pink Floyd's The Wall. I had the tape, had the CD, bought the digital. I would say most of the Beastie Boys catalog, definitely a few Bad Religion albums, specifically the first CD I bought. That's why I think of it as Bad Religion's No Control. I think it was in 1988 that came out. Had the tape, bought the CD. I think I bought the CD a couple times because I lost it. And it's one of my favorite albums of all time. And then bought the digital. And now I'm paying Bad Religion still because I stream it, right? So it's a quadruple dip. And if you go back to 8-tracks and records, so, we made fun of Rolling Stones. If you're a huge Rolling Stones fan and you bought a Rolling Stones album on record, and then later you wanted to listen to your car, so you bought the 8-track, and then you bought the tape so you could listen to it on your Walkman, and then maybe you bought the CD, so you're up to 4, and then you wanted to go digital, you bought it 5 times. And if you're streaming it, they've maybe dipped into that album's revenue 6 different times.
Did we say vinyl?
You did, yeah. We started with vinyl.
Gotcha.
And so, that's the one thing. So we've given a lot of money to the record industry, but is it equitable? Is everybody getting paid right now? So now I think, well, I don't buy albums anymore. I don't buy a CD. I don't buy the digital version. I go to shows. But one thing I often say is I wonder if I'm spending more money on music per month than I used to. I don't know if I bought an album every month. There may have been times during my life where I was getting close to that, but I spend, I think the family plan on Spotify is around $20 a month. I joke all the time. It's one of the best $20 spends I spend every month. My wife and my 2 kids, we all are bananas about music, listen to music all the time. I would drop any other subscription, Netflix, YouTube TV, all those go first. But Spotify I keep. And so I wanted to get into this and see how people are getting paid, because is it equitable? Is there something wrong? Okay. So you've probably heard, have you ever heard people say, well, they only get paid like 0.0003 cents per stream?
Yeah, I've heard stuff like that. Yeah.
You hear stuff like that all the time, right? Well, it's important to kind of understand some of the context. I'm gonna get a little bit nerdy here, because this matters. I want artists to make money. I want them to be able to do their art. It's important to us, right? And I want to contribute to it. I want to be a steward. What's the word? Of the arts. I want to experience it. Yeah. I want to be that. So I looked into it, and so things. Artists are paid royalties, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're paid differently in different ways. Like you can get synchronization rights, which is a per deal kind of thing, where say, they sell the rights to use my music in one of your films you're making, right?
Yeah.
But the main ones here for us, for people who are just consuming music, specifically, not to talk about hard media, so buying records, there was a set fee, say I get $2 per record or CD or tape or digital sale. The artist gets a flat fee, and that's split up usually amongst 4 different people. There's the songwriter, the publisher, the artist who's performing it. Sometimes the label gets to dip in there, and as well as some of the session musicians involved. So a lot of people get paid on the royalty, but just to oversimplify, we won't get too much into it. But now in the streaming world, you're not doing that. You're not buying an album. You're paying for a fee to have access to it. And so there's 3 kind of types of royalties that are paid in that reality. One is like radio, right? So if a song's played on the radio, there is some money that goes to the artists. And that wasn't what they were dependent on to make a lot of money. And in some countries, they don't take any money. It's just seen as a marketing thing. But in the US, which is where we're kind of focused, they get paid a little bit of royalty for their music being on the radio. And then, but for our purposes, there's the streaming, right? You remember when streaming first kind of hit? It was like radio, right? It was Sirius FM, it was XFM, and it was Pandora.
Yeah.
Did you ever use Pandora?
Yeah.
So it's like that is what's called non-interactive, meaning you don't get to select the song. You don't just go to an album and listen to an album. Yeah. There is some algorithms. There's some things about it. It's almost like radio, right? Pandora was built for radio. The reason those kind of hit first is because the licensing was more understood, and they essentially were licensing it just like radio. It cost a lot less for Pandora or Sirius FM to play the music because it was what's called non-interactive. So it was just like radio. You didn't get to pick. And where it changed is when we get to what you and I know as streaming, which is on demand, which is I can listen to any song I want now in any order I want, just like as if I owned it. And that's a different licensing thing. That costs more. There's more to be paid there. So that's the 3 types. So we're going to focus on non-interactive and on demand, right? That makes sense?
Yeah.
Non-interactive is like radio, basically. On demand is what we, if you have a paid...
my Spotify, because I do the free Spotify. It's like pseudo non-interactive.
Yep. There's a hybrid as well. So you can kind of pick things, but then it's going to throw a commercial, or it won't give you access to all the music. And that's where it kind of gets into this gray area, right? So yeah, there's kind of that hybrid where ad supported, and I don't have the full on demand. I have like a semi on demand, right? So you can click a song I've never really used it. When you click a song on ad supported Spotify, like say you just open the app and you haven't done anything and you go to click a very specific song, does it play that song?
No, not always. Mm-mm.
Okay. So
it'll play something like that song, and then it makes you hit the forward button, but you only get like 4 forward buttons, and it's a roll of the dice if you're going to get the song you're looking for.
So it's basically non-interactive with almost some interactive stuff. So, okay. Now that's the types. Now there's 2 types of payout. This is where we get into legal terms. One, it sounds all confusing. Pro rata, which is all the money goes into a bucket, right? So all the Spotify about 50% of your Spotify monthly payment goes into this bucket to pay artists. And this is how Spotify works. They're what's called pro rata. It goes into a bucket. And then depending on the percentage of total plays for whatever the time interval is, a month, let's say, you get a percentage of that bucket. So if Post Malone is 3% of all plays on Spotify, he gets 3% of all the money that goes into that bucket. So, and if you're down chain, same thing, 0.0001%, right? And then there's user centric, which is what most people think it is, which it's not. There are some platforms that do it, like Bandcamp, where if I play a Post Malone song, he gets paid the fee for whatever it costs, whatever the fee is, whatever the licensing is for me to hear that song, right? Or even if it's in buckets, for every 500 plays, Post Malone's going to get a certain amount of royalty for it. And when I say Post Malone, I mean all the people within the chain of a Post Malone song that get paid: songwriter, publisher, performers, all those things. They all have to get paid. That's called user centric. Most platforms are doing pro rata, where it's just one big bucket and it's broken down by percentage. And they even set some thresholds, because what's happening in streaming is, as you may know, there is like fake music or music trying to capitalize on you searching for something. Like you want to go search for Daughter by Pearl Jam, and it might play some song called Daughter that isn't by Pearl Jam, and it's garbage. And so they're setting minimums of like 1,000 plays in a 30-day or something like that. It's for them to even qualify for some of this stuff. So again, pro rata, one big bucket, whatever your percentage is of what's getting paid, that's what you get. And then user centric is whoever's listening to your music, you get paid based on the percentage of what they're listening to out of their payout, right? And so that's where things get confusing, because one thing that's totally true is it's not a per stream payout. And that's where it gets lost. That's kind of a red herring. I mean, it's not really what happens. It paints a false picture of how artists are getting paid. So whenever you see an article or someone posting, here's per play payouts for YouTube Music, Apple, Spotify, Deezer, all those. What's the title? That doesn't mean anything. It's not a thing. It's much more complicated and nuanced than that. Okay, there's tranches to it, and so often you're mixing what you get with non-interactive and on demand, and that doesn't work. Per song streaming. What I've learned in this, it'll be in the show notes. I got some good links to some articles. It's not a thing. So whenever you see that, just ignore it. It's not a thing. What I learned, and just to sum up after looking at all this, is think of YouTube. Right, your kids watch the YouTube, right? And they probably have some famous people.
We've got some people subscribe channels. Yeah, they come through. We watch them when they drop a new video.
Right, right. Well, here's the thing: there's arguments about whether pro rata or user centric is the way to go. We think at a glance, user centric is the way to go. But at the end of the day, there's two sides to this. One, there's always a way to game the system, right? By just getting useless plays is how bands or fake bands have tried to game pro rata, or just barf music onto the platform. You'll see how many different remastered versions of an album are on there. You don't need to make the the reverb on that one snare drum 1% more dry than it was 20 years ago when we remastered it, just to throw it on there just so you have more coverage. They're gaming it. User centric is basically what YouTube is, right? So the ads you see or your subscription for YouTube, if you're paying for it, goes to the creator, and it is a user centric one. So the more people that watch your videos, the more money you're going to make, and it's based on that kind of user centric idea. Both of them are kind of a winner take all. At the end of the day, the most popular is going to be making way more of the money. It is a very steep curve on the way this works. There's only 1% of or people of less that are putting content onto YouTube can make a living at it, right? Like, we're not going to make a living at this. We get a few thousand people here and there, a week or so listening or popping in and watching some of the clips of Suburban Kings on YouTube, but we're not going to make a living at it. And that's true with music too. There is musicians, actors, artists is one of the most, has one of the highest unemployment rates in the world. I would say probably basketball is probably the highest unemployment rate. There's only like 300 something basketball players in America making a living at it, maybe less than 1,000. Right. And so that's the reality, is like we see these numbers, and when they throw that red herring out of per stream, they're just barely, you listen to it, they might get like 0.00003 of 1 cent when you play it. That's not the thing. Okay. Yes, the music industry has changed. Yes, the way things happen changed. We don't buy albums anymore. But it's in capitalism, it's always going to be winner take all. There's always going to be a 1%. And in music, it's no different. So do we cancel our streaming apps because we don't like the way things are? I don't know. This is the reality we're in right now. This is not changing. This isn't going to go away. Now, how the licensing happens might change a little bit, but no matter what happens, it's going to be a small few who are making lots of money, and it's still a pretty small amount of people that are going to make a living recording and putting music out there. So what do you think, John?
I was thinking about it from the artist side, and then I was thinking about it from the supporter side. Right. And, it seems like there's still something to be said about the hustle that comes with like the expression of the art, whether it's music or art itself, like more of a, like a show, like you're going to go do an art show somewhere. Like the hustle of it is like, man, we're going on tour. We're going to play at these shows. We're going to care about our customer or our listeners in a way where when they mention that they're at our show, whether it's the actual artist or, you're paying somebody to run your social media accounts, at least engage with them and say, thanks for coming, or stick around and give a couple of kids like an underground album and sign some shirts and keep moving and hustling. Because I think isn't that the value of like trying to climb that ladder is when you go on tour, you're building your fan base. Like, more people hear about you, and those people that have a good experience with the show are going to share that information, whether that's, the Google star reviews or, sharing that through your, stories and your feeds. So that to me seems like if we want to be good listeners or supporters of the artist, go to a show, and say you went, and tell people like how great of that expression of the art it was, or not, trash them if it sucks or whatever, because that's the thing that can be disconnected from this, is how digital, I don't know, the separation between the human experience of being present in a moment versus just being a casual listener where you just put something on. And that's where I think part of what we're fighting against in this, or at least for me, is to be engaged, like stay engaged with the arts. So if it's not music, go find an art show and go try to like it. Go walk through and sit with a painting for a minute, or, a piece of pottery, or, go walk through a garden somewhere. And allow for yourself to feel the tension of like, man, this is kind of boring, because then maybe you might turn that corner and it might be the very thing that you have been missing and needing. Like, and I'm seeing that through my kids. My kids have been going to a lot of shows. Yeah. And, it's really perpetuating a lot of things for my oldest son, because he's starting to make music now. And so this is interesting to me because he's coming to me with a lot of questions, and I don't have a lot of answers, but he's just digging around trying to figure it out. And the things that it makes me wonder is when he uses like a couple of loops, or like for his song, I'm like, okay, well, here's the deal. If that gets some listeners, what does that mean for the loop that you got it from? Like, you got to be a little careful with this, because then he's like, well, I'm putting this song on Spotify, but I got to go through this third party for them to even put it on there. I'm like, well, what does that mean if you get some traction with this? So that it's dicey, because I got a 16-year-old son that's dabbling around with this stuff, And in one hand, I'm like, go for it. Go,
Yeah.
dude, just figure it out. And the other hand, I'm like, well, there's some greasy people out there that are going to take advantage of kids that don't know any better. So this is, figuring that piece out. I don't know, because if he was doing this 20 years ago, then it would be different, because then you're paying the bar guy, or you're getting free fajitas.
And that's the thing. What's changed is the bar to entry to get your music broadcast around the world is super low. I could probably get a song on Spotify in the next 24 hours from zero, right? Or definitely could get it on somewhere else, YouTube, for free today. If I, so that's totally different, where the bar to entry to just make the recording, let alone distribute it, is so different. And that's kind of where I am now. And it's at what use are the labels now?
Right.
They used to be the gatekeeper to all that. And so there was a toll to get your stuff out there, and they would collect that on the back end when albums were sold. So that's what's changed. So at the same time, there's this concept in business called marginal cost. Have you heard that term?
Mm-mm.
So, if let's say you open a restaurant, right? Well, to get that first plate of food on the table in front of somebody, very expensive, because you had to build out the space you rented, buy all the equipment, pay people. I mean, you're talking, you made no money. You're not making money. But once all of that is accounted for, your sunk cost, your rent, all that, what does it cost to create the second plate of food, right? Yeah. The marginal cost still pretty high, because you have overhead and all that sort of stuff. In the digital space, once you've made the recording and you've put it out there and it's digital, the marginal cost to get that recording to another person is near zero. And how do you mark up near zero marginal cost to make money? And that's the difference in digital space. There's not that big lift. So, you should, at face value, that conversation needs to start with, a digital song is worth less than a song on a vinyl record. Pure and simple, because it is cheap, it's easier to make, it's easier to distribute. Zero cost is almost zero. What's the electricity cost to download one song? It's nothing, right? So that's where we are now. And I think just our mindset hasn't changed. So you're seeing the money now is in synchronization, getting my song into movies, video games, films, things like that. The money is in live performance. A few people are making money from their streaming or other things. So the cost of shows is that's kind of where we're taking the hit. I think we get access to more music for less money. But if you want to go to live shows, that's who's carrying the water now in terms of the finance. So you're seeing all, whenever you see a band you haven't heard of in 10 years, like Oasis, where you get back together and tour, you're like, ran out of money.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting because he went to a South by Southwest festival, a smaller scale, and it was at a small venue, and they had these artists that would just take the stage every hour, and there was 10 or 12 of them. And I was thinking so old school, because he wants to network, he wants to connect and stream with some of these guys and collaborate with some of these guys. And I was like, too bad you can't just burn 100 CDs and put a single on it, hand it to people. How do you navigate that now? How do you network in a way, put some cards together with a QR code on it, and they scan it, and you put those all over the place, and it'll lead them to your download.
The street team, the hustle.
Yeah. That's kind of how my mind works. And then it gets weird, because he's just looking at me like, you are such an old man, because that doesn't translate now. But I can't teach him to hustle digitally. Hey, you got to start following people. You got to start figuring out how to have those conversations.
Well,
you need to start.
Talk to my daughter, who we'll record our first episode on Sunday, where she is going to introduce me to new music. We were talking through it this week, and she's like, most my friends and myself, our main channel for discovering music we haven't heard is TikTok. That's the channel, whether it's new music or old stuff that is put on. So when something goes viral, that's the channel now, is I got to get my song to go viral on TikTok. and have other people use it for their background, for the music, for their TikTok.
Yeah.
And so
yeah.
it's interesting. Very different from what we're used to. So yeah, wild times.
Yeah.
And in light of how people are getting paid, let's talk about cover songs.
Yeah.
I love a good cover song. Okay. And I'm going to talk about one. I'm not going to talk about, what cover songs are great, but I do want to talk about currently what ones are bad. And then we're going to get into a draft. And as always, John will go first. But can we just touch on some of the worst cover songs of all time real quick?
Yeah. Like jump in and I'll spin off you. Like we'll go from here.
I could tell you right now, the worst cover song of all time is probably Eric Clapton doing "I Shot the Sheriff." Which is a dangerous place to go. One, iconic song from an iconic artist that is very different, unique voice, unique sonics.
Yeah,
that is a scary place to go. And he didn't really change the melody; he just Claptonized it, and so it
gave it the clap.
It's just bad. Especially, and maybe that's just me and the world I live in, because I'm a huge reggae fan, and that song is just the cover is just garbage.
Yeah. Well, I mean, dude, when you said that we were going to be talking about this, immediately I sent you my worst of all time: Pitbull singing "Africa." On the Aquaman soundtrack. Yeah,
that was terrible.
It literally makes your ears bleed. Like, it is so. My stomach, it turns. Like,
it was good. It was terrible in that. That's a good nominee. And the other one that you have to talk about is Stained doing "Sound of Silence." Auto-tune hell. Auto-tune hell.
Gosh, yeah, so bad.
So
bad.
Yeah, just rough. So I want to start it off. You get the number one pick in the cover song draft.
Yeah.
And then with my number one pick, I'm going to describe what makes a good cover song. If my number one pick still stands after you go.
I think it's good to preface a little bit like what you're saying. And for me, I just put my list together based on my listening, like how many times I've listened to the song as opposed to trying to identify like the best cover song of all time.
I'm kind of in the middle. I'm kind of in the middle there.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have a feeling that I'll be pulling some stuff off the list that you're just like, you can have it. Like, I'm not going for like the fantasy football. I imagine,
I don't think this one's going to be as competitive as the road trip albums. That was, we were jockeying
and I
for similar
think
albums.
too, like with a cover, you kind of touched on like Eric Clapton. He did his Clapton spin on a reggae classic. And that to me is like what one of the most intriguing things about a cover song is. And I think that can really be the risk in it. But that's also when you hit a home run. And what I mean by that is a cover song needs to take the song from another artist. And then as an artist, you got to express it in your own way. You can't just perform it. You can't karaoke it. You got to take it. You got to make it yours. So that way, like if you go look at a Andrew Warhol painting, you know his style.
Yeah.
So he can't paint a different style. He's got to paint in his style. So when you see it, you're like, oh, that's a Warhol. And I feel that way with like a good musician is you got to know who's singing it, but you then immediately connect it with the original and say, oh my gosh, okay. I got to get past how this isn't landing with me because it's so different because I'm so used to the original, but this is kind of cool because he's putting his spin on it. So anyways, for me, I'm taking Wonderwall by Oasis originally, redone by Ryan Adams. That's just at the top of my list.
All right.
The first 2 or 3 times I listened to it, I didn't like it. But then I fell in love with it. And he puts a haunting spin to it. It has some melodic changes that are a little weird at first. Like, well, okay, that's different and doesn't land well, but it's so honestly him and so honest in its own way. And I love how much he simplified it, slowed it down. And Ryan Adams is an imperfect singer, and that's why I like his singing.
Yeah,
he's a terrible singer.
Some life. Yeah,
but he's him.
He's not Anthony Kiedis terrible.
True. Yeah. True. So I'm putting that at the top. That's a personal pick. I love it. Arguably one of my favorites.
I love it. Now, my number one pick comes from the origin story as I understand it. This gentleman that composed this cover of one of the most popular songs of all time was, if I understand the story, he was basically in the kitchen with his wife and a cover song came on as you describe it, where it really wasn't much different. It was using the same melody, and really the only difference was we're using different instruments maybe, and just the tone of the singer is different because it's a different singer. And he's like, that's not a good cover song. You got to change the melody even and make it something totally different. And on a whim, he's like, I got an idea. Here's an example. And he takes this song that everybody knows and he makes it his own and changes the melody. And for my money has created not just my favorite, I think it's my favorite, but what I think is also technically one of the best covers of all time. And that is Billie Jean by Chris Cornell.
Oh man. Yeah. Yeah.
It is. He does this blues in a minor scale version of this song. And again, we don't play the music because it's impossible our videos and things get taken down. But Billie Jean by Chris Cornell is just hauntingly good. It's clearly got Cornellian melody to it. He completely changes the song. And I've heard recently, it sounds like maybe like an America's Got Talent or somebody did a cover of Chris Cornell's cover, and it kind of bums me out because they just are doing a bad cover of a great cover. And it's like, you totally, when I think about the origin of this cover and him saying you got to do something different, it's almost offensive that someone else is doing his version of it, because it is just perfection. And you don't even have to be a Chris Cornell fan. So Billie Jean by Chris Cornell, that's my number one draft pick.
Dude,
in cover song draft.
That's awesome. I remember you showed me a performance of that on a YouTube, and then later on he did it again, like right before he died in a studio. It wasn't a live performance; it was a live studio recording. Right? Yeah, dude, so good, such a great perforence. One you shared,
just awesome.
All right. I don't even know where. I've made a pretty long list, and I don't even know where to go. But
I'm gonna 47 songs in my short list.
I'm gonna go with Mad World, originally put together by Tears for Fears, but Gary Jules did a version of that.
It's on my short list. That's one of those covers where, depending on your age, you might think that's the original.
I thought it was when I first heard it.
I was a huge Tears for Fears fan when they dropped in the 80s. So for me, I loved the original, but this is a great cover.
I listened to it a lot. I don't know. It landed with me in a time in my life where it just like it matched my mood in a weird way, and it'll put you in that mood, you know. And it's a moving song. It reaches your emotions in a different way, and it's powerful.
How many churches played that version of that song on a Sunday morning?
That's a good question. I don't even know.
I bet it's a lot.
Why is it just G, C, and D?
It's just got it's safe.
B minor.
It's safe. It has a vague enough message, but that can be pointed enough that it works within a church setting. It's one of those, like a U2 song. But great song. Original's awesome, and I love it. And they changed it. They made it a new song, and it's awesome. Now I'm going to be the first one to drop it. My number 2 pick is what I would expect is there's probably going to be several Bob Dylan songs on here, because as I've always said, the best Bob Dylan songs are ones covered by other people. And this is one of my favorites in terms of covers. It's not too different other than he just throws a rockabilly Mike Ness action at it. You may know Social Distortion and Mike Ness, the frontman. His cover of Don't Think Twice by Bob Dylan is my number 2 pick.
That's cool, man. That's a good pick. I like that.
It's a banger, and it's one of those ones where it just takes that song, which is a real quiet. It's one of Bob Dylan's songs where he's not having to work so hard, so his terrible singing doesn't get in the way. But this version of it is upbeat. It's got the boom chuck. It's almost a country song, the way Mike Ness does it. I love it.
Okay, sweet. I'm going to take one that is probably going to be very controversial. This is like me saying one of my favorite shows might be a reality show. This is like a guilty pleasure.
I know you like a home improvement show.
And so I'm gonna take this one. It represents maybe a time in music that just got really, really weird and lost, but it's fun. It's a little more upbeat. But I'm gonna take Alien Ant Farm's rendition of "Smooth Criminal," Michael Jackson's "Smooth Criminal." It's fun, man.
This one is controversial.
It's fun. It's fun. I'm not saying it's better than the original. It just it again, music connects to me emotionally. And when I turn that on, it makes me kind of want to rock out, maybe throw some Frisbee golf discs. Yeah. I think I listened to that at a time in my life when I was playing Frisbee golf.
I love it. And it was a great move by them to introduce people to their sound, because their sound was a little bit different. They were kind of coming up in that, in that late 90s, early 2000s, kind of on the heels of what like 311 were doing and Incubus and that kind of thing. And they brought a different kind of sonic to it. And it's a great way to introduce people. I always think if you're a band and you're opening for a band and you're playing to a room where people don't know you, it's a good idea sometimes to throw a cover that puts your sound onto a song people know. Great. And it helps them tune in. I think this did that for them. I think this was because I love their track Movies. Great song. But it introduced you to, it got you familiar with their sound. So great one right there. I am going to go going Bob Dylan again.
Cool. Yeah.
I'm going Bob Dylan again. This is a Guns N' Roses cover. You know it?
Oh, wait. Yeah.
Is it Bob? I'm second guessing myself. Is Knocking on Heaven's Door? That's Bob Dylan.
Yeah. But Knocking on Heaven. Eric Clapton did a little clappy and spin on it too.
I hate Eric Clapton. Only because of his bad Bob Marley cover. Knocking on Heaven's Door, Guns N' Roses. That's my number 3 pick.
Sweet.
Great cover. And just got some awesome just wailing from Axl Rose. Like this was peak, Guns N' Roses with the Use Your Illusion. Can I say it? Use Your Illusion.
Use Your
1
Illusion
and 2.
Yeah.
Great album.
Sweet.
Great cover.
Yeah, buddy. Oh man. I'm okay. You mentioned Bob Dylan, and I think Bob Dylan might arguably be one of the artists that have been covered the most. And honestly, I appreciate Bob Dylan. I don't know if I like Bob Dylan. I appreciate him because of how much influence he's had culturally in music, Oh
yeah.
Folk singing, folk writing, the movement at the time. But he's probably one of the most covered artists of all time. So there's a local Austin artist that has been covered, and I don't know if people like him or even know how much influence he's had. He's like the Austin Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
Daniel Johnson.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna take Bright Eyes Devil Town. I just I like that song. I like that band. And it was in an episode, that's how I heard it, of a Friday Night Lights. Again, another Austin recorded show. Clearly, I am just a homer. I like Austin culture. I've grown up in Austin, so that song for me did it because it was a Daniel Johnson song. I like Bright Eyes, and then the Devil Town played in an episode of Friday Night Lights, and then I actually spin it from time to time. I like it.
I love that song. If you haven't heard the original, if you're going out there to look to, a bunch of people have covered it. It's one of those songs where it's it's almost like Hallelujah, where it's become a staple for covers. And a lot of times we've been to some tapings, and a couple times they've played Austin covers. And was it Bon Iver? Did they do Devil Town?
I don't know.
A lot of people, when they do an ACL taping, they'll play Devil Town. So you'll see a lot of covers of
it's like a nod.
And it's a great little song. Yeah, he's like a Bob Dylan. He's a terrible singer, but just a quirky ass songwriter. And if you ever get the chance to watch that documentary, The Devil and Daniel Johnston, do it. Really phenomenal. All right. So I am kind of torn here. I don't know if I need to get too defensive because I don't think we're going to be super.
Yeah.
You did get Smooth Criminal from me. So I am going to go. Here's what I'm going to go with one I think a lot of people know. I'll make sure I know who the original artist is. So this one I think is one where I think most people, especially in our generation, know the cover more than the original. So the original is by the Velvet Underground, which is, kind of late 70s. Kind of there were precursors to punk, kind of in that almost that, CBGB New York era. But it is Sweet Jane by the Cowboy Junkies, which you may remember the movie. What was it? It was Natural Born Killers.
Yeah.
This was one of the songs. This is where that
soundtrack was very underrated. My brother had that on CD, and he played that a lot, and it has a ton of like really good artists, and it was a really like ugly movie, but in a good way.
It is a very haunting, chill song that it's on my morning playlist. A lot of mornings. I have a kind of a breakfast blend playlist that I have. And so Sweet Jane by Cowboy Junkies is my number 4 pick.
Sweet. Very good. I'm going to go with a Nirvana Unplugged. And they took David Bowie's The Man Who Sold the World.
Mm-hmm.
And their live performance of that wasn't perfect. I think, he missed a couple of notes when he was singing, and like, I think even in the guitar solo, they missed a note or two. It was just a little bit of a messy performance.
But you want that from Nirvana.
Yeah. But I liked their version of it, man. So
I dig it
with that. Yeah.
I dig it. I'm trying to think. Do we go with another? On my short list, I have at least one more Bob Dylan, but I'm not going there.
Okay.
I am going to go with another one out of a soundtrack, this time from Pulp Fiction. This is, I'm trying to think what's the best way to describe it. Well, Neil Diamond. This is a Neil Diamond cover. This is, when I'm trying to explain someone how much I like dynamics in a song, which is, volume, maybe not tempo change, but just intensity versus not, a good song has good dynamics. It's, up and down.
Right. Yeah.
The original of this song is an example I give to that because he kind of flips it, where the verse is more up and loud and more in your face, and the chorus is subdued.
Okay.
And this band, they don't change it a lot. It doesn't really fit within our rules because they don't change it a whole lot. But Urge Overkill does a great cover of "Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon."
Yeah.
And
I didn't know that was a cover.
Yeah, that's a Neil Diamond song. And it is, and again, it's one of the songs, if you didn't have parents who were old enough to be listening to Neil Diamond, tidbit, the first show I can ever remember going to was a Neil Diamond show as a kid, played at a fair kind of thing on the lawn with the family. So,
I saw a Neil Diamond cover band show at the Austin Music Hall. I think they were opening for Tenacious D. And the name of them were the Diamond Smugglers. And the guy was wearing like a sequined outfit. People loved him. And a total home run opening for Tenacious D, because it was total putting on a show. Anyways,
listen to the original of "Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon" by Neil Diamond, and you'll hear what I'm talking about. Yep. His vocals go hard. Mm-hmm. They go hard. Mm-hmm. Like you can see, it's a tough song to change. I get why Urge Overkill really didn't change it a whole lot. And his vocals are very similar to Neil Diamond's, his tone, and just the power between the verse and the chorus and how it's flipped is really interesting. Again, the chorus is quiet and subdued.
Yeah.
And the verse is
that's
up
cool, man.
And in you. So a great song.
I like that. That's a good one. Okay, I'm gonna go with "When the Levee Breaks" by Led Zeppelin, taking it from Memphis Minnie, whoever wrote it originally. But it's a stark difference, and that's a classic Led Zeppelin song that it goes hard.
Right.
When I think of Led Zeppelin, that's might be my favorite Led Zeppelin song. I love it.
I can clearly say my favorite Led Zeppelin song is "The Ocean."
Okay.
But I like "When the Levee Breaks."
Yeah.
It's got the wailing. Yeah, yeah.
No. When the levee breaks, it opens with like a harmonica and
Yeah.
yeah, it's different. No, what you're singing is I come from the land down under.
No.
Not that song. The when the levee
Yeah,
breaks.
the
When
Levee
you
Breaks
hear
has that. It has the Beastie Boys sampled it for Rhymin' and Stealin'.
yes,
It starts with the drum with
yes,
the gated
yeah,
reverbed drum thing. It's awesome.
yes.
I know
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
I totally blanked on that one.
I love that Led Zeppelin song, man. And I didn't know it was covered for the longest time. But
I apologize to the classic rock people. I'm not a classic rock dude, so
that's
I don't
all right.
know.
I'm not really
But I do
either.
know the ocean is. Yeah, I think we
it's
both
a
agree
nod
on that.
to that Zeppelin song, man. It's a good cover. It's a solid cover.
It's definitely one of those ones where people don't realize it's a cover. And I threw a couple on here that are worth mentioning now that you bring that up. Girls Just Want to Have Fun, Cyndi Lauper, is a cover, originally done by a dude, in the 50s, right? So that's a cover that a lot of people don't realize. A lot of your country, when country kind of had its heyday, early Johnny Cash, Patsy Cline, lots of people, even in the Elvis days, most of those songs were done multiple times by multiple people. They were covering. There was so much music being put out, it was covers. So I think like Patsy Cline's "Walking After Midnight" is a fantastic song, but it's a cover, right?
Yeah.
Let's see, "Georgia on My Mind," Ray Charles, that's a cover. Twist and Shout by the Beatles is a cover, right? All those sorts of things. They're covers. So I'm gonna go with kind of a local artist, or semi-local to you in Austin, out of Wimberley, Texas, Sarah Jarosz.
Oh yeah.
Sarah Jarosz, who is she kind of came to fame, I want to say
9?
Yeah, maybe in that, somewhere between 2009 and 2015, as like a 15-year-old bluegrass vocal phenom.
Yeah.
Right? Like just amazing vocal. She could sing. And so this is a cover. It's an old song from like the 70s. Where I first heard it is one of those ones where it's a cover of a cover in my world, because I know it first from the Decemberists. And I thought when I first heard her sing, and I'm like, she's doing the Decemberists, but they're actually doing a song by I'm trying to say is a real song. Let's see, it's like a protest song from like the IRA era during the Troubles in the 70s.
Dang.
So it's one of those things where like maybe they sang it like in pubs or something like that. Like it's a pub song. And the Decemberists did it because they have this weird, like they're always doing like history influenced songs. Yeah. And the song is called the Shankill Butchers. And it's just this haunting song. And it's just, I get why Sarah Jarosz did it, because it's just ready made for her voice. And it's off of just the one I thought was the original, which was by the Decemberists, is off the Crane Wife album. It's called Shankill Butchers, and it sounds almost like a haunting song you sing to kids before bed to get them to go to sleep. If you don't go to sleep, if you don't fall asleep, the butchers are going to get you. Yeah, it's one of those, and it's just it's so perfect for her songs. I put it on. I'll play music and have candy and a fire out in the driveway for Halloween.
Yeah, sweet.
And this is one of those. It's on that playlist because it's almost a scary song. So Sarah Jarosz's version of the Shankill Butchers, that's my number 6 pick.
Sweet, man. I'm gonna check that out. I can't think of that. That's something for me to check out. You're putting all these in the note.
Yeah, it's gonna be in the show notes. So everybody can grab these. I'll link to my short list playlist, which has all these on there plus another bunch. So,
nice.
So what's your number 7 pick, John?
Okay. I'm gonna go with "I Will Survive" by Cake.
Ooh, that's on my short list.
Oh, got it. Yeah, dude, that kind of falls in the Alien Ant Farm kind of space for me a little bit, like just that time frame in my life when I was listening to that music, and they do their Cake spin on it, and I liked it. I didn't know it was a cover. Well, actually, no, I did know it was a cover, but the original singer wasn't who we think it is. Gloria Gaynor?
Wasn't it Donna? Yeah. Donna Summer?
But I think she did a cover because the original artist, the credit when I looked it up was Gloria Gaynor, because I thought it was going to be the Donna Summer I Will Survive. But anyways, I think it's a cover of a cover.
Yeah, that's right. So you're right. It was.
I thought that's what I meant to say. Is I didn't know it was a cover of a cover. I knew it was a cover, but I thought
still in that disco era.
Yeah.
Nice, very, very good. I like that song. Cake was the local band when I was in high school.
Yeah.
So they're a local band that made it, and their first album, Motorcade Generosity, is perpetually on my Desert Island Discs playlist. That's one of my favorite albums of all time. And it's they're a band that has stayed sonically true to their roots, and have not seemed to falter away from that. And I really appreciate that.
Me too.
So
good usage of trumpet too, by the
way. I am gonna throw for my number 7 pick. I need to throw some punk rock in there because punk rock matters. And did you get into the Sublime in high school?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Did 40 Ounces to Freedom, did that hit, or was it until the self-titled in your world? In California,
40 Ounces to Freedom hit. No, it was a thing. It was a thing here.
So there's a Bad Religion song on there. That is one of my favorite Bad Religion songs, and it's very, very relevant to today's zeitgeist. And the song, so my number 7 pick in the cover song draft is "We're Only Gonna Die for Our Arrogance" by Sublime, originally done by Bad Religion.
Okay, I didn't know.
And they don't change it much. They, except that they throw a reggae bridge in it. Like it starts off, fast, like a proper Bad Religion song, and then they break down into their reggae, and it's really awesome. And it was one of those things that made me go, okay, I'm going to listen to Sublime because I love Bad Religion, and they clearly listen to Bad Religion because this was not a single. You wouldn't know this unless you were a fan of Bad Religion. So We're Only Going to Die for Our Arrogance by Sublime.
Yes, sir. All right. Cover album.
Ooh.
By the late great Johnny Cash.
He did like 7, right?
Yeah. I don't know if it was an entire album, but one of the last things he recorded was like a cover album. And I'm going to go with The Hurt by 9 Inch Nails. It was hard the first time I heard it to listen to because I was like, he's not doing it like 9 Inch Nails does it. But it really grew on me, just an appreciation, because he was actually singing from a place in his life. And I didn't hear it the first couple times because I was so almost like thrown off by him singing it. But I'm gonna give it to him for putting it out there because man, this is a good album, and he's such a great. I mean, arguably one of the best, country western. I don't even know if I put him in that one of the. I can't think of
country.
He's country.
He's definitely country.
Outlaw. He's an outlaw, like outlaw music. That's the country genre he falls in. He's an outlaw.
So Johnny Cash did 5 cover
Rusty
song
Cage
albums with Rick Rubin. So 5 albums of all cover songs. He did like "Personal Jesus" by Depeche Mode is probably the other one that's really famous. And to hear kind of the origins of that, Johnny Cash just fully put his trust into Rick Rubin because Rick Rubin was like, "Do this song," and Johnny Cash says, "I'm not seeing it, bro. Like I'm not seeing it on Hurt, but I'll do it because I trust you." And it hit. And it's again one of those songs. If you're younger, if you're you were born prior to the 9 Inch Nails kind of peaking in the early to mid 90s. This is the version of the song, and I would imagine there's a lot of people who don't realize it's a cover, and or haven't ever heard the original or aren't familiar with it. So it is the song for them, and I think both versions are just awesome. I think a lot of people are like, which one's better?
Right?
They're different in such a way that they're both just incredible, and they just bring a different thing to it. And Trent Reznor will tell you, he says that's Johnny Cash's song now.
So cool,
and I'm okay with that.
Awesome.
I would bet it has more plays on Spotify. I'm gonna check right now. Let's see here.
Oh, man, that's a tough call.
Johnny Cash is at 667 million.
Oof.
Okay, 667 million. Hurt by 9 Inch Nails. Let's go to Good album. Hurt by Nine Inch Nails is 1/6 of that at 104 million.
Dang.
So six times more.
Dang.
So Trent Reznor is right. That's Johnny Cash's song.
Oh man.
And I will give him to it because he's a legend. He's a legend. So get back to my playlist so I can get down my number 8 pick. Great pick, John. And you said cover albums. I actually have a cover album represented on here, but I don't think it's gonna make my top 10. It's close.
Okay.
There was an album. I need to go to this album because it's that important. This was happening in the 90s a bunch. You saw bands doing full covers. I know Rage Against the Machine did a full cover album, Renegades. But there was one where a bunch of bands would cover songs by one band and do an album like that. This album's called If I Were a Carpenter. And it's all Carpenter's cover songs, and they're really fantastic. And it's all kind of your 90s players in there. So interesting. I do have Superstar by Sonic Youth on my short list. I don't think it's going to make the cut. I am going to go with, this one's going to be tough. I'm going to go with, here's what I'm going with. I'm going with a song by the Pet Shop Boys. Always on My Mind.
Okay.
You're always on my mind by the Pet Shop Boys is my 8th pick.
Okay. Willie Nelson did a version of that. He did it, but who originally wrote that song?
Let's look.
I want to say Ray Charles did a version of that song too, but
it's one. I think it's definitely become one of those standards. So written by Wayne Carson and Johnny Christopher and Mark James, recorded by Brenda Lee, released by Gwen McCrae in 1972 is the first time we see it. Elvis Presley did it. Willie Nelson did it in 1982 was the first time he sees it. Pet Shop Boys in 87. And so they put a great spin on it. It's kind of has like an orchestral opening. It's one of their biggest hits in terms of plays by the Pet Shop Boys. So one of my favorites. I love the Pet Shop Boys. So that's my pick for number 8. Always on my mind.
Sweet. Okay. That's awesome. Song that actually got a lot of plays, and I don't know why, but I got the CD. That's probably why. It's interesting that this makes my list, but I'm gonna go with "Killing Me Softly" by the Fugees with Lauryn Hill, sang Roberta Flack's hit. I liked that album. I liked that Fugees album. I think that may have been the only Fugees album and or Wyclef / Lauryn Hill albums I ever purchased, or even really got into. I appreciated them. Lauryn Hill's an awesome artist, singer, but that's a good song. Like I actually played that quite a bit when I bought that CD.
That's a banger. Yeah. That's on my short list. Yeah, it's on my short list. That's a good one. So for number 9, I'm going to go into hip hop. Worth saying, Fugees' The Score album is top 10 hip hop albums all time for me. If you haven't, go back and give that a listen. It is a fantastic one, and that one's kind of borderline cover because they cover. I think it's a cover, so I'm 100% in support of it. But the verse is obviously different. But they not only changing it sonically, they're changing some of the words to kind of make it their own. But I think it qualifies as a cover. I'm curious what the royalties are for that, based on how much of it is a cover, how much of it that kind of I'm interesting. I bet it's complicated, the royalties for that one.
Yeah. Hey, how many do we have left? I'm just curious how to narrow this
one
down.
Each. One each. Dang. Yeah. So you got to pick your next one's number 10. It's got to be a banger.
Okay, I got one, and you could probably steal it from me because
here's my number 9.
Okay,
here's my number 9. This is, and I grew up on hip hop. This is, there's no way to describe this other than just to say it, and that is "Boys in the Hood" by Dynamite.
Yeah, dude. I loved that when that came out.
Great song.
Yeah.
I love the original. It's on regular rotation at my house, both versions of it, to kind of take a rap song Here's a couple things you don't realize. Next time you go to listen to Boys in the Hood by Dynamite Hack, also listen to Blackbird by the Beatles, because that's the song they're playing. And that's the melody they're using. They've taken a Beatles song and an NWA song and mashed them up. So not only is it's a cover of 2 songs.
Cool.
And
cover mashup.
It's a cover mashup. So which is super interesting. And it makes it that, and that's one of my favorite Beatles songs too. So that's why it really hit me. The other thing that's kind of buried in here in the Easter egg is the name of the band, Dynamite Hack. It struck me as well because it's a phrase from one of my favorite movies of all time, one of the most quotable movies of all time, and that is Caddyshack. When he's in his shed, he's like, "Cannonball, you try this. This is some dynamite hack." And so it's describing weed is the name of it. That's where their band, I assume that's where the band name comes from, because that's where I know it from. But Boys in the Hood by Dynamite Hack, that's my number 9 pick, because it's a double cover. I'm getting NWA and I'm getting the Beatles.
That's a good pick, man. I like that. I liked it. I enjoyed it when it came out. People didn't like it because it was so different. But again, that's the risk. That's the excitement of the cover. He totally made it his, and he was very clever about it, clearly.
If you like that, Ben Folds does NWA, but it's only on YouTube, because he did like a live show, like almost like a ACL live kind of thing, but for Facebook. And he covers Bitches Ain't Shit by NWA, and it's amazing. It's just, as Ben Folds could do. So that's also worth looking at, but that's okay. You're not gonna be able to play that in Spotify, so I didn't add it.
All right. I'm gonna close mine out with a cover and an original that I arguably like equally.
Oh.
And they're different. They're very different, but they both work for both these bands. I'm going with Such Great Heights, originally written and put together by the Postal Service, but redone by Iron and Wine.
I have the Postal Service on here, and that was one where I thought it was their song originally too. I was confused. Who was your OG?
Yeah. So that's what I'm going with to close my.
Also from Wimberley, Texas. Wimberley getting represented twice in here.
Yeah. That's when you were saying that, I thought that was who it was going to be.
Right. And was that in the Garden State? Was that the version that was in Garden State? That's why. Yeah. So you covered it in there.
Garden State, another good soundtrack, man. That was really good. The Shins and
we might have to do a soundtrack. We should, draft.
Man. Yeah.
All right. So I've got a hit here. I'm going to come out of left field, because this is, again, like we've talked about songs that have hit us, at the right time, and I would never consider myself a huge Pearl Jam fan. Right. And
I am.
Yeah. So as a fan, so I think my take on Pearl Jam is different. So, but as someone who's more of a Pearl Jam fan, what would you say is your favorite? If you only had one album to rock, what would you?
10.
10. Okay. Yeah. See, I think most people would say 10, or Vitology is the other one. Yeah. Where I'm kind of, my favorite is Versus. That's the only Pearl Jam album I listen to front to back, and it has a cover on there. Do you know what the cover is?
I can't think of it, but when you say it, I'll probably know, but I can't think of it.
It's the closing track, and so this was on CD, and so the kids don't know. A lot of times you had a hidden track, remember?
Yeah.
So you go to when you're playing the last track on the album,
you gotta wait.
Which I think was Elderly Woman, maybe was the last track, or I can't remember which was the last track on the album. Whatever the last track, you look at it, and the song would be like 18 minutes long.
Yeah, that's when you knew.
That's when you knew there was a hidden song. And it would be blank. And so
it's
then
like seeing a Marvel movie and waiting to the very end to see that last little 3-second snippet.
They throw that stinger at the end. Yeah. And so it's like that. It was a hidden track, but that's not I don't know if that's a thing on the streaming. At least it isn't on the Spotify version of Versus. But there's a song on there that's a cover. It's called Crazy Mary. And I don't know if it's just really stripped down, just kind of clean electric guitar, and Eddie Vedder just in his bag singing. And it's kind of this old school, probably like a blues song. It is. The original artist wrote it in let's see, 1986. Let's see. It's a song about like a historical figure. Like there's something about it.
Interesting.
Victoria was an American singer, songwriter, music. She from Louisiana. She was born in 1958. In 1986, she worked with her husband Peter for the album Following Years. When was it written? Oh, it's just her. Victoria Williams originally wrote it, but she's like a legendary songwriter that you've never heard of because a lot of other people did her songs. And so Pearl Jam does Crazy Mary, which you should go listen to as a Pearl Jam fan. So that's my number 10 pick in the cover song draft, Crazy Mary by Pearl Jam.
Sweet. Okay.
That's it. A couple honorable mentions.
Yeah. I wanted to throw something out there. It's been catching my attention, and it works. And I think it would work really well.
I know what you're going to say.
Well, okay.
You're going to say Fast Car by Luke Combs.
Oh, yeah. Nah, yeah, it's grown on me. But no, I'm going with the band that pretty much they've built their following just by doing covers.
Okay.
And I think this band I think they're going to start creeping in. Like, I think they're going to become a thing.
Okay.
They're a Tejano band. They take these classic bangers and these current hits, and they throw some what is that or accordion, and they throw the Tejano spin and everything, and it really works. And they're good. They're good musicians. Name's awful. Easy Band. Nice. And their Instagram page is fun because they'll take the song, they'll do their spin on it. And the reason why it's fun is I'm always curious to hear their rendition of it. And another reason why I think this band's really going to make it is like, at least here in Central Texas, is there's so much culture here. But just being right here at the border, I think if you were at a backyard barbecue and you put them on, and people would like it.
Noted. That's going in there. Easy Band for honorable mention. They just have all covers or lots of covers.
Just thumb through their Instagram. It is getting a little watered down because you can tell now they have to keep up with this monster they created. So it feels a little bit like they're not putting as much love into it. But if you scroll back a little bit and listen to some of those, it's like, oh, dang, that's awesome.
Rapid fire honorable mentions here. Mrs. Robinson by the Lemonheads in the 90s. Remember that? Yeah. It popped off, originally a Simon and Garfunkel jam. Bullet the Blue Sky, POD, covering U2, which is really good. UB40 doing Elvis's Red Wine. Yeah. Walk This Way from Run DMC, kind of a hybrid cover. One of my favorites off the Rage's cover album, Renegades. They do How I Could Just Kill a Man from Cypress Hill. Love that version.
Renegades of Funk was a cover song.
Yes, the album's called Renegades.
There's
a bunch of covers. They do an MC5 jam on there. They do some good stuff. That's John Mayer's Free Fallin' from Tom Petty is great. I love that one. Wild Horses by the Sundays doing Rolling Stones. I love their version. I think that's better than the original. It's more haunting.
What was the girl that sang it? Mazzy Star did a great version of that song.
I bet she did. I don't have that on there. Let's see. And then also, you and I knew the bass player of Sixpence None the Richer doing There She Goes.
Yeah.
That's a great one.
When you said that Disturbed did the song, you didn't mention that they did Land of Confusion. Have you heard it? I don't want
to hear anything
bad. It's almost as bad as the Pitbull Africa song. It's almost as bad, dude.
The guy,
it'll make you laugh.
Somebody gave that guy an auto-tune machine and he went mental. Like, just bro, it's not yours. So there's some good honorable mentions in there. I think we're due for like a really interesting cover. Like we said, Luke Combs' Fast Car. Yeah, it's not way different than the original. Yeah. It's nice that some new people are being exposed to it. But man, my number one pick, Billie Jean by Cornell. I'm waiting for something like that. Someone to just take something that was like, a song that's just pop culture canon and make it something really different. I'm curious to see if something can happen and in that space. That'd be cool to see. Oh, other one on my list of is Hard to Handle by the Black Crowes. I'll close with that honorable mention. So also a banger. So Black Crowes, you remember them?
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah. They can rock a festival. So there we go. That's the cover song draft. I love it. I love a good cover song. So we'll catch you all next time.
Yeah,
so
buddy.
I think we fixed our technical issues, so Jon can now record. Hopefully I can get back to the rhythms of getting the podcast going here in this second part of the first half of the year. So see you guys next week.
See y'all
later.